Commissioners. My name is Stephen Eddy with TEP's Government Relations Department, 88 East Broadway. First off, I'd like to state that TEP is very appreciative of the collaboration efforts that the county has spearheaded over the last few years to heighten and strengthen the economic competitiveness of the region, and in particular project portfolio. We look forward to continuing those efforts and working together to grow our community. With that being said, we are very concerned with the tax climate within the county, and in particular the proposed tax increases that you all are discussing today. TEP recognizes that modest increases in property taxes are warranted at a time when revenue and property values are decreasing. However, the 16.78% increase that is proposed in this year's budget could hinder economic development efforts that are being made by the county. In 2013, TEP paid $10.3 million in property taxes, which is a significant amount for any business within the county. With the proposed increases for 2014, that amount would increase to $11.6 million. That's an increase of $1.3 million. Unfortunately for businesses in Pima County, these costs eventually have to get passed down to residents and folks receiving bills and receipts within the county. We ask that you consider the economic impact of the increases in property taxes on all residents and businesses, and either reduce or delay those packages for another time. We'd be happy to answer any questions. If not, appreciate the time and consideration.
And why isn't Larry
here? He is in the Apache County Board of Supervisors, and unfortunately they had a fire up north, and they had to delay their Board of Supervisors hearing, and is now coming back to Tucson. But I know you received our letter. Appreciate your consideration for that letter.
Thank you. Supervisor Valdez.
Madam Chair, Mr. Eddy.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, last year TEP received a rate increase for residential 13.3%, commercial 12.3%, and large commercial at 14.1%.
That is correct.
Why do you need that?
What's that?
Why was that necessary?
We are a capital-intensive utility business. We need to continue to make upgrades to our infrastructure to provide safe and reliable electricity to our customers, both residential and commercial. All costs eventually have to be recovered by our customers, and property taxes are included in those increases. Now, granted, that increase was last year. We're not going in front of the ACC for another rate increase, but when that time does happen, we have to consider all the taxes that are borne by the company and eventually our customers, and that includes property taxes.
How is your providing service any different than our providing service, and how is that different than this?
We understand that, we appreciate that, but there are real costs that all businesses have to
Just like
eventually
real
pay.
counties have costs.
Yeah.
And when you raise your rates, it impacts us because we pay those rates.
We appreciate that.
If I could just interject, the
Yeah.
real truth, and I think what my two learned colleagues are trying to say is that we're all in this together, and you as well benefit from those increases in an infrastructure needy organization, similar to ours. So that's part of building community, isn't it?
Absolutely, and we appreciate
Okay.
that, and we know that when partnering with the county on economic development efforts, we want to continue to grow the county. We know that takes services, just as we are in the infrastructure business. It does come at a cost, but there's a progression to how those increases can be put onto the residents and businesses within the county. And right now we see that 16.7% increase is a pretty significant increase for all business and residents.
Mr. Huckleberry?
Yes, Madam Chair, I think the first thing is we need to correct, it's not 16.7%, it's 12.2%. because we tax both on the primary and the secondary. You're probably referencing the primary. But our overall tax concerns deal with total taxes taken. Total taxes that are proposed in this budget are an increase of 12.2%. In addition, we do also feel the same increases that you do and I think we'd be happy to trade our property tax for the utility rate increase. Simply, this year, actual expenses of the county paid in electricity is $13.3 million. With your rate increase, we're projecting that next year it'll be $16.4 million, an increase of $3.1 million, a 23% increase. So $3 million of our property tax increase is related to increased fees from Tucson Electric Power.
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Miller.
I'd just like to make a point at the end of the day, the county and TEP, where this ends up on is the backs of the taxpayers, and that's taxpayers have expressed that they are the this, and I think that point needs to be very well made for the taxpayers in the room that have come to speak here today, and that's why myself included, that this all ends up on the backs of the taxpayers. So I'm looking at all rates and the impact that it's having on the taxpayers, and both TEP, Pima County, gas tax increases, all of that is impacting the taxpayers. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you. Aren't you glad you were here instead of Larry?
I'm a little younger. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Board, for having the meeting today. My name is Bart Pemberton. I'm in District 1, and I believe respect is very important as well, and I think first and foremost respect and deference should always be given to the taxpayer. According to the county's own numbers, between the HERF funds and vehicle license taxes that are collected, last year alone they got over $40 million. And those are supposed to go to roads, and that's even after the legislative sweeps that were done. So, but last year, only $5 million was allocated to the roads. What the heck was the other 35+ million spent on? I think we should have an explanation on that. Presumably, we're going to have over $40 million collected in taxes that are specifically for roads. And yet this year, again, only $5 million is going to be spent on roads. And we're going to spend more on a single parcel of land than we are on all of the roads. That is not respectful to the people that work hard for their money and have the money taken from them in the form of taxes. We've had at least 2 or 3 property tax increases over the last few years. I don't want to pay any more, and I don't think my family should have to do with less, because the money's getting misspent anyway. So why can't we put 100% of the HERF and vehicle license tax fees to the roads? Why can't those?
We are. They are required by law, and we are doing that.
Last year's budget was $5 million.
No, last year's budget, the $5 million you're talking about were general fund dollars that were also allocated for road repairs. That is the first time we have done that. We have done that because our HERF revenues are shrinking, and in the past several years they've been swept by the legislature. But the HERF funds go for roads. That's the reality, so you're misinformed.
According to Mr. Huckleberry's own numbers, that I've got it right here in a PDF, the county received over $47 million in HERF and VLT fees. Out of that 47, almost 48 million, 3.7 million was swept by the legislature. That's according to this. Now maybe this is wrong, but that's what this says. And so there was a total of well over $40 million. And are you guys saying that that much money was spent on the roads last year? Yes. I don't think so.
Correct. Yes, that's correct.
You can't tell.
Madam Chair, I think we're talking, Madam Chair,
Supervisor Miller?
I think we're talking about direct costs to the roads. I think that's what you're referring to. And on average, for the last 11 years, Pima County has received $33 million per year after sweeps, after bond payments. And this is from Mr. Huckleberry's own report. And those monies are not going directly to roads. And as we know, in District 1, the money was swept out of District 1. What little we got was $1 million for direct road payments. So the rest of that money is not going directly to road repair. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think you're correct, Mr. Huckleberry.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, this is an often misrepresented issue, and it's being misrepresented today. Our budget this year, the one that you're going to actually look at adopting, contains an operating budget or a budget revenue allocation of the Department of Transportation of over $51 million. Of that amount, and about $39 million is directly attributed to the operation, maintenance, construction, repair of the highway system. And that's everything from patching potholes to repaving roads, to striping the roads, to putting in the signs, to paying the staff that drive the dump trucks, the graders, the water trucks, the rollers, and all the other things that go into transportation system repairs. So that money is being spent every year. The unfortunate part is it's simply not enough to make an adequate dent in repairing the roadways and primarily pavement preservation. So this board, over the last, say, 2 to 3 years, has supplemented, which means added to the Transportation Department's revenues, which come from HERP and VLT, with the county's general fund. And the county's general fund comes from the property tax. The property tax comes from every taxpayer in Pima County, whether you're a city resident, a Sarita resident, a Marana resident, or a Lower Valley resident. And what this board has done is taken, in the last 2 years, it's been nearly $20 million. This year, there's a potential allocation. I think that's another issue that's misrepresented. It's only a recommendation I've made. This board hasn't made any allocation of general funds to the Department of Transportation this year, or for the coming year. And the difficulty that we have is that, and there's another discussion that says, well, I said it's a drop in the bucket. Well, the actual cost to repair adequately the roads and highways in the unincorporated area of Pima County that we have maintenance responsibility for is $300 million. If you then say someone's used a $3 million figure, well, that $3 million is 1% of the problem. It's likely that during that 1 year that investment has been made, there's been deterioration because these are assets that deteriorate over time of probably the same amount of money. So you're not making much progress. You really need to solve this problem over a 10-year period. But the difficulty we have with the general fund is that it comes from all taxpayers. And so it's somewhat inequitable to basically tax city residents to fix roads in the unincorporated area. We've done it because we haven't had any choice. But every dollar that we get in HERF, BLT, goes into the transportation system.
Madam
Chair.
Supervisor Carroll.
Madam Chair, I first want to thank Supervisor Elias and Supervisor Brunson for identifying that there is some maybe reports that have been circulated that aren't official documents that might have a difference compared to what Mr. Huckleberry just clarified. I think it was clear that we do use our HERF monies, but I know the budget for transportation pretty well. I'd like to restate, there's also a section of our HERF monies that we're using to pay back our 97 road bonds. And if we could get an estimate of that this year, Mr. Huckleberry, let's find out when the final payments will dissipate and when we can see an increase. And I also want to say, when it comes to our system with our HERF bonds that we approached and approved in 97 is through a vote of the people, that there were audits and there were accountability studies that proved that these dollars were being appropriately spent. Yet I do want to ask the county administrator the two questions. First off, what would the final payments of HERF, how many more years, at what level? And secondly, after 5 years in office, I've decided to take a risk and support a tax on gasoline. Maybe we say the legislature doesn't have an appetite for passing a resolution or a ballot proposition that would allow counties either separately or as a state to vote for an increase in gas tax, especially when we know if Congress ever does come back together to pass a transportation tax, we could see a large transportation gas tax come from a federal source. So those two items, I'm curious, how much would a gas tax bring to Pima County, whether it's a shared state resolution or proposition, or whether it's a local proposition, first off, and secondly, about the HERF bonds that we once put out there. And I like the system of bonds. I like the system not pay as you go, because as a Republican who doesn't vote, as I have not voted for this budget, nor did I vote to allocate the excess general funds for transportation, I do like a bond package. I do like projects that are delineated specifically to districts, because it does bring equity to all of our districts, in my opinion, and it has for the 5 terms I've been in office in my very close observation. So thank you, Mr. Huckleberry.
Thank you, Supervisor Carroll. Supervisor Miller.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to reiterate that data came directly from Mr. Huckleberry's Transportation Funding Report, and the data is calculated after the HERF payment, or excuse me, the bond payments have been made, and after the HERF sweeps, which was over the past 11 years was a mere $34 million. And if you look at the result, we get an average of $33 million per year, and you're saying it's going directly to the roads. I think it's clear to everyone in this room that we're not repairing roads. I don't have to sit and calculate numbers and try to convince people. It's very clear that we have not been repairing the roads. Marana, Maricopa, Oro Valley, you drive in their neighborhoods, they had HERF sweeps too, but they made a budget that included repairs to the road, and they kept to that, and they pay their employees out of their budget, and they make sure the roads are repaired. That is what is wrong in Pima County, is we're not spending the money on road repairs, and you don't have to listen to me or Mr. Huckleberry up here with the numbers. All you have to do is drive on the roads, and you can see it every single day. I know I do. So, thank you.
Marquez Peterson.
Good morning. My name is Leah Marquez Peterson, and I'm the president of the Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Chairwoman Bronson, Board of Supervisors, and Mr. Huckleberry. The Tucson Hispanic Chamber represents more than 1,000 member businesses in southern Arizona and Sonora, with the majority of them located here in Pima County. We request that the Board of Supervisors consider the economic impact of the proposed budget and its recommendation to increase primary property taxes. The proposed budget currently recommends an increase of 16.7%, which is a drastic increase to our business community. Such an increase impacts the vitality of our existing business community and may deter companies from relocating to our county. While homes and small businesses are certainly affected, this also impacts our largest employers in the community the most. Chamber companies with multiple locations have expressed concern over a 6-figure increase in property taxes here in Pima County. Such a tax increase may impact their ability to expand and to hire new positions in Pima County as they consider the financial burden compared to other counties in our state. Our community has just begun to recover from this economic downturn, and it's been very slow. We're not ready to right the budget shortfalls that the county has experienced over the last several years. We ask that the board consider each of the components of the proposed primary property tax carefully. Tough decisions within the county to delay projects or forego improvements must be made. Funds must be found elsewhere for the priority initiatives the county wants to develop. We calculated the 16.7% increase based on the newly proposed 33.27 cent increase from the rate of 3.665 approved in May, making the new property tax rate 4.2779 for $100 of assessed value, which was an increase of 61.14 cents this year, or to us an increase of 16.7%. We ask that you reconsider the primary property tax increase for the future perhaps. Our business community continues to recover financially from the recent economic downturn, and we need the time and the predictability to become healthy again. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you. Karen Caesar.
I'd just like to reiterate what this lady from Far Valley had to say. First became interested in this when saw the Arizona Star article quoting Mr. Huckleberry that $3.3 million is a drop in the bucket, something to that effect. He may want to correct the wording, but it is my feeling that as stewards of our collective money, $3.3 million is not a drop in the bucket. And if it's a drop in the bucket because the roads have not been fixed properly in the past, again, that is your problem. We have, as a homeowner, if I have a leaky roof and I decide to build a swimming pool instead of fixing my leaky roof, you're going to tell me there is something wrong with the way I'm using my resources. To build a soccer field, when we have poor roads, and as another man mentioned, some of the existing parks, there are other ways to get additional funds. We have, within the county, we have bought up over the years, I think this is my money, we have bought up all kinds of land over the years. Now, if I had a large parcel of land and I decided that I wanted to buy something over here, I might split off a little bit of my land over here that I may have bought and wished I hadn't, or maybe saving for some other, who knows, God knows what, purpose, and I would take that land and I would sell it, rather than putting an added burden on the backs of the taxpayer. Our taxes are going up, you come up with bond issues, enough is enough. I thought I was going to speak after my husband. You can hear my voice, that I'm extremely uncomfortable speaking in public. Was going to come up with him, didn't. And I guess that's all I have to say. Now, I don't know, I would really like to know whether this was unfortunate wording in the paper from Mr. Huckleberry, or whether this is how he feels about this tiny, minuscule $3.3 million. Because if you don't have use for it, I'd be happy to use it. Thank you.
Clara.